Alright guys, so here is the Dodge, all done, but the oil pressure in the truck is still super low. So today we're going to be taking the oil pan, going into the main bearings and rod bearings to see if we can save it. If not, then the engine's definitely going to have to get pulled. I know a lot of guys will say on here that, well, why didn't you troubleshoot the engine and blah blah blah. Well, part of troubleshooting is fixing some of the issues, just like you're going to the doctor, right? If you're at the doctor's and you got one issue and you fix the one issue, then another issue appears, you're going back to the doctor, right? So this truck obviously was running a long time with a bad cam and just caused a lot of damage, and especially after seeing the oil pump, which we did replace and put a high pressure spring into it to raise the oil pressure up. We'll go ahead here and start it so you guys can hear it. It's not making any noise until the oil pressure drops. And so here is it running. Engine sounds perfectly fine. But then as the oil pressure starts to drop, immediately as it starts getting warmer, and then it starts making lower end noise. So yeah, we're gonna pull the oil pan off and see what the main bearings look like. We did the lifters, the camshaft, obviously. We did the lifters, the cam, everything, just to find out that the engine was actually junk, I guess, pretty much at this point. We replaced the oil pump, and obviously some things went through it, and here is the damage. We thought we could roll bearings in there, but we cannot. We are going to pull the engine out starting tomorrow, and here is the damage. Let me turn the light on. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but that's all metal. Couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And then, before I give it away here, this is the main, this is the main, this is the main. And then look at this main. See the heat on it? This gotta be cleaned up, but, and then here is the bearing out of that one. It is completely smoked and causing low oil pressure. And then I even pulled a rod bearing off, or rod cap off, and they don't look good either, but the rods are actually in good shape. It's really the bearings that took a beating on all this. So this was seized on the main bearing cap, and I'll show you what the engine looks like. Alright, so we're underneath here, trying not to get any oil drips on the camera lens, because that would be a nightmare. But there's one, there's two, and this back one is the main issue here. I don't know if I can pick that up on the camera, but that back journal is destroyed. Yeah, this is what a 6.4 looks like underneath. So this truck, I showed you guys yesterday, the engine is coming out. The main bearings are trashed. The crankshaft is trashed. So we are going to be pulling this puppy out today and hopefully disassemble it today. Alright, guys, so she's pretty much out now. Got all the bolts out, engine mounts loose, the transmission's loose, everything's good to go, but we found out our engine hoist is actually too small to get in there. So we got a big one coming. We're going to borrow from another shop to get this bad boy out of here. And then I'm going to do a teardown video of just stripping the engine and getting it all the way down to the block. But this is it. I decided to leave the engine harness in. I just disconnected everything and obviously took the radiators out, and just pushed the harness over to the side. And then what's going on, you guys? It is finally Friday. So yesterday we did the video of tearing apart the 6.4 engine, and we ended up taking it to the machine shop, and they said the crank was completely trashed. So we ordered a new crankshaft right from Mopar. It should be here Monday, I think, and we got new bearings coming for it. New rod bearings, new crank bearings, all that jazz. So there will be a video coming out of rebuilding that. And then we picked up yesterday the Range Rover engine, and that one just got rebuilt, so we'll be putting that one all back together and getting that one straight. As you can see, the shop is an absolute disaster right now. the torque converter got stuck on the flywheel of the Dodge, but it's an absolute rectal. Oil over there, and then we got oil all over here. Got all the parts from the Dodge. We got even more parts in the bed. Everything we took off to get the motor out. So today is going to be nothing but pretty much cleanup day. We might look at the diesel van again. Pretty sure the intake flap on the diesel van is clogged, and I'll show you what that looks like real quick. Here it is here. This is all the parts off of. So this is all the Mercedes, but it's gonna be the same thing. I don't know if you can see that, but that's what happens when you idle too long with turbo leaking and you still have the EGR. It just clogs up the throttle plate. And that's actually all of this Mercedes engine. So that's probably what's going on with that one, because I forced the regen and it failed. And it failed because it was too low air volume. And also in the other videos, I showed that the exhaust temperatures were like 500 degrees, which actually on that truck is pretty low. It should be way higher. And when I was making the video, it didn't really dawn on me that it was really that low. But it is bad. So we're going to look at that one today. We got to do brakes on a GMC today, and then maybe a wheel bearing on a Charger. So we got a little bit of stuff going on today, nothing too crazy. Next week's going to be probably insane. Then we also, so obviously we had a back main bearing problem. Look how hot that thing got. And then look at the bearing. See the heat on it? And this is the inside. That thing was completely smoked. So we just got our crankshaft for this 6.4. It just got dropped off. We next dated it from Rock Auto. Those are the only people that had this crankshaft for us. Here it is. Original Mopar crank for a 6.4 liter HEMI. And then we also got the camshaft in for the Mercedes ML350. So those will be going in this week. I'm working out on this crankshaft. So these letters, A means undersized, B is standard, and then C is oversized on a Dodge crankshaft. And what the first number means, the first main bearing. So all of these are undersized bearings. What I'm trying to figure out though is the rod bearings, if they're undersized or oversized. And it has a bunch of markings on this crankshaft, and so I know this was supposed to be I guess a genuine Mopar crankshaft, which it is, but I think it's been machined, because every rod bearing, there's people's written on them. Somebody's written on them. This has an AA. One has an F on it. So I'm trying to figure out what all that means right now. So pretty much what I'm doing is taking Scotch-Brite and cleaning up all the bearing surfaces here on the engine, since we are reusing everything, just to make sure that the bearings are seated good in here. And then I'm going to put the standard bearings in, and then use a plastic gauge and torque everything up, and see how far we are off, because that is a undersized crank, but only by like 4, I think it's like 4/10,000, or was it 0.004? Is it 0.00? No, it's 0.0004 is undersized from Dodge. What came out was a standard crank, which is a B, labeled a B. This is labeled a A. And then the bearings we are using are meant for a B. But I called the machine shop. They said as long as I'm below 1/1000 out, we are good to use the standard bearings. So that's what I'm going to do now. Hopefully it all matches up and everything is good. I am concerned about the connecting rod bearings on the new crank, because they are labeled with a bunch of different letters, and I have no idea what the letters mean. So yeah, I guess we're gonna figure it out. Alright guys, so I'm pretty much done tearing down this 6.4 HEMI, and I really don't understand how this motor was even running, honestly, at this point. Look how bad these bearings are. So there's the rear one, and then look what I found in the journal. That's a piece of metal sticking in the main, or the connecting rod journal. Here's another one. And then here's some of the bearings out of the main. So this was a main, this one's a main. This is the only good one I found. And then there's another one here. And then this rod bearing don't look very good. This one don't look very good. And then I got all the connecting rods labeled and which way they go as well, because on a HEMI they are cracked. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but the surface is not flush, and that's because these connecting rod caps are the cracked kind. So therefore you cannot mix them up or mix them up in orientation. This is the only one that I don't know which way it goes, because this is the one I pulled off of the engine when it was in the truck, when we were looking at everything. And the same thing with these. The mains, they all have arrows on which way they go, and they're labeled. So this is all ready to be pulled out now. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this out and see what other kind of damages we have inside here. So I got all these main caps cleaned off and installed in the correct way. The arrow facing forward, and then you got a number 1. Same thing, facing forward. Number 2, facing forward. Number 3, facing forward. Number 4, then facing forward, and number 5. We're not worried about the connecting rods down there or anything right now. I'm gonna pull all these back off and put a thin strip of plastic gauge in there, and then torque everything down, and then pull it all back apart and see where we're at. Make sure that the bearings are going to work with the bearing caps, and make sure the bearings work with the crankshaft, since this is an undersized crank with oversized or standard bearings. Kind of confusing, a lot of measurements, and then we're going to do the connecting rods afterwards. We're going to put them all in with all the plastic gauge, and then torque all of them up. So I'm going to go look at the torque specs for all this stuff, and then go get the plastic gauge, put them all in here, and see what we got. Hopefully it's gonna be fine. I'm kind of concerned about this back one here. The back one definitely has some gouges in the cap. Try to clean it up, but obviously you can't take too much out or it's going to spin a bearing. So we'll see. This right here is the plastic gauge that's in there. Just cut a little strip, just like this. There's a little plastic piece. You just cut a little strip, and you put it on here, and you clamp everything down, and it'll tell you your clearances between the bearing and the crankshaft. So something like that. There we go. And then we'll put the bolts in it just like all these, and then tap her on down, and then we're going to torque these bolts to the spec. It's got one more to go, which is this one. So to torque these main bolts here, we're going to be doing this M12. So it's 21 foot-pounds and then 90-degree turn, or it's 28 Newton meters and then a 90-degree turn. So I'm going to go ahead and run through all these and get all this set, and then we're going to tear it back apart and check what the plastic gauge says, and hopefully we're good to go and we can move on to the connecting rod bearings, and we're going to do the same thing on those.
Nothing seems right, 'cause when you're born I lose my sight. It's harder at night, the curtain's drawn, can't show my eyes. Do you still think of me? I get a feeling you're lost in a dream. Told me I'm all that you need, but you're too far to even hear me scream. Don't let go, I'm too scared to ever wanna be alone if you're not there. To ever wanna
So just torqued everything to 21 foot-pounds, 90-degree turn, and just busted them all back loose. And this is what the plastic gauge does. See that little streak right there? See it a little bit better here. That little streak right there is what we got to measure. So move all that stuff out of the way here. So, alright, so this is millimeters. This is inches right here. So all these little piano lines or whatever, you stick this in here like this. I don't know how good you guys can see this or not, but pretty much we're just looking for the closest measurement right here. So this one is 1/1000, and it may be a fuzz bigger, maybe. I mean, it is damn near close right there. That looks almost perfect. So that's pretty much what we're looking for. It can't be no more than 2 thousandths is what the machine shop said. And we're at 1,000 right now. So that's pretty good. So that was number 1. So I'm gonna go through and check all the rest, and then we're gonna tear it back out, put oil all over the main bearings, and actually tighten them up for good this time. And then we're gonna go and do the connecting rods the same way. We're gonna put all the new bearings in them. We're gonna connect all the connecting rods, torque all of them, put the plastic gauge in there one by one, and check every single one of them to make sure we don't have anything out.
Told me I'm all that you need, but you're too far to even hear me scream. Don't let go. I'm too scared to ever wanna be alone. If you
So I just went through and Scotch-Brighted all the connecting rods, and it's the same thing I did with the mains and the main caps, just to clean up everything and make sure there's no, like, you know, weird burrs or anything, but they all look good. So I'm gonna go ahead and push the cylinders all the way down, so I can put the crankshaft back in for the final time. And then we're gonna put some assembly lube or assembly engine oil in all the mains, and get the crankshaft all bolted up and finalized. And then we're gonna go ahead and do individually one connecting rod at a time, and do the plastic gauge and make sure all these are right. So we'll be good to go. And don't forget that you do have a shim on both sides of the middle crankshaft main bearing holder. It's a shim here and a shim there, and I think they are front to back. So we do have new ones of those we're going to put in. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it on camera, but they are new. So yep, we're going to do the time lapse again. Alright guys, so we are still working on this 6.4. This engine's just been an absolute nightmare. I've never dealt with so many issues, but I guess it's because we're trying to skip steps here. This engine should have went to the machine shop and should have got all the machining done to the crankshaft, the cam journals, or the cam bearings, and even probably had some cylinder work done to it. And I stayed here late last night thinking I could get this thing together, and on the final torque of the crankshaft main bearing bolts, I noticed that the one that got hot in the back, it wouldn't seat right, but it tested good on the plastic gauge, so I thought, but I guess the plastic gauge is only, but so good at measuring the clearances in between the bearing and the crank. And so I put it all back together last night and tried to spin the crankshaft over, and it's completely locked up, and that's no bueno. And I knew that it was the bearing that actually spun, or not spun, but got hot. And I'll show you guys here what's actually going on with it. So this is the back bearing here, and I don't know if you can see that on camera, but look at the bearing lip right there. So the bearing is flush on this side and raised on this side. That means this main cap, from getting so hot, has shrunk. And I just got off the phone with the machine shop to ask them if I could do anything about it, and they said, obviously no. And also, what you really can't see on camera, but this cap is actually warped, and I can see daylight through this main bearing, between the main and the bearing. So this is no good. You can see I try to clean it out with like emery cloth and a little bit of sandpaper to try to clean up these bad spots from the bearing, and it's just too ate up. And then two is, I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not, but it's not sitting flush. I can move it around on here, which is no bueno. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna leave all this in. We're gonna push first I'm gonna mark all the pistons. Take all the pistons out. We're gonna pull the cam out. We're gonna flip it upside down, pull the MDS solenoids, and she'll be a bare block besides the crankshaft. And I'm gonna go ahead and load it back up and take it to the machine shop to get line bored through the main caps to make sure everything's perfect. So anyways, I had to go ring out customers and stuff, but I went ahead and labeled where the pistons go. I don't know if you can see that or not, but went ahead and marked it right here, number 5. Then marked this one number 1. And then just wrote on all the pistons, because they need to go back in the same hole, especially if we're not doing any machine work to the bores. It doesn't really matter on the crankshaft because they're a brand new crankshaft. But we got everything labeled over here, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull all the pistons out and get this thing stripped apart. So we got her all stripped here. I want to show you guys this. All the MDS solenoids broke. And I think it's because it's packed full of metal. I don't know if you... Look at the metal on this thing. I think the engine is just completely full of metal. All the MDS solenoids broke. The only one I got out was this one. And we knew the cam bearings were a little bit bad, but they're not terrible. But obviously this thing is just completely full of metal. So I'm gonna go ahead and load it up on the truck, and we're gonna take it to the machine shop and let them mic out the bores, and hopefully it doesn't need too much work. My guess it probably will. What's going on, you guys? So it's 2 days later when we dropped off the Dodge engine, and we just got it back. It looks pretty good. They cleaned it. They did cam bearings in it because they were shot as well. They also put the crank in and torqued everything for me, and they cut the back main cap for the main bearing to get that back in, because this was the problem one, the back one. They said it was like 15 thousandths out, which would have re-destroyed the engine if we would have kept it that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the engine holder set up on here, and then we're gonna go ahead and slap all the pistons in it and run the plastic gauge through the connecting rods to make sure they're all in spec with the new bearings, and make sure there's nothing crazy going on there with those. And hopefully by the end of the day the engine will be built and going back in the motor or in the truck. Maybe this evening. I don't know how fast it's gonna go. Once we get the pistons in, it's gonna go pretty quick, because the heads, the front cover, everything else is really simple. The cam, all that stuff is mega simple. It's just really getting all the measurements right for the connecting rods and making sure the engine's gonna be right when it actually goes back in the truck, so we don't have to do nothing else to it, and it can go back to the customer. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back once we put the pistons in. So all the MDS solenoids were all broken, so we got all brand new ones, and the machine shop removed them. I'm gonna go ahead and lube up each cylinder with a little bit of oil, and go ahead and start putting the pistons back in the same hole they came out of. I got everything marked, so I'm gonna go ahead and put everything back in, so then we can start checking the clearances on the connecting rod to the crankshaft to make sure there's nothing weird going on there. Because the last thing you want to do is build this motor, especially at this stage, build it and do everything right, and come to find out connecting rods aren't right, or the bearings aren't right for the connecting rod. Then you got to pull the motor back out. You know, it's just a downhill slide after that. So really need to make sure everything is absolutely perfect with this motor, so we have no hiccups. So I got all the one side in. They're not torqued or anything. I just got them all in, and I don't have a piston ring compressor, so I'm using this hose pick tool, but I'm not using the point of it. I'm literally going around the piston ring like this to help shove it in the hole. I tried to make my own piston ring tool, you know, a straight piece of cardboard, and then I went to, I don't know, there's crap everywhere. I went to a piece of plastic, but they weren't big enough. Yeah, so I can't get it to work. I know there's different ways to do it. I even tried a big hose clamp on them. Couldn't get it to work either. So it's just taking me a long time. If you're doing one of these engines, you know, the front of the engine's here. And if you look right here, there's an arrow. All the arrows should be facing forward. If not, your valves are going to smack the top of the piston because you have valve cutouts for the HEMIs. The intake valve smaller than the exhaust valve. So that's this side. Oops. Motor moves completely free now. So yeah, it looks good. Alright guys, so we're almost there. Got the whole front cover bolted up, AC compressor back on. I gotta put engine mounts on. All the pistons and the main bolts, connecting rod bolts are all in and tight. MDS stuff is in, lifters, and you got the rear, and you got the front MDS. Same thing on this side. This is a brand new set. Rear, front. Got the brand new cam in it. All in time. Remember that the top should be the 2 and the 1 line on the cam phaser. Crank should be 1 dot at the bottom and 1 line. Pretty easy stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the head, both heads on, put the MDS solenoids in. I gotta clean this front one. We got new rear ones, but we gotta do the front one. And then for this install here, for us, we're gonna leave the oil pan off to get it in because it's pretty tight up against the firewall right here. So we're gonna leave the oil pan off so we can come in a little bit lower and hook it up to the transmission. Yes, I do have a new seal for this. I'm gonna put that on, put the torque converter back in. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. Looking pretty good. The engine is very tight. I measured all the connecting rods, and so this is the plastic gauge here. So I'm not very good at reading this lingo here, but I think it's .0015 is where the connecting rods are. So they are very tight, but the motor spins over free, and there's nothing binding. Everything's good. So, like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and put the heads on, get all these torqued up, and then I'll probably take it off this stand to hook the flywheel up and leave it on the ground overnight. So then tomorrow morning we'll go ahead and put it in the truck, and probably tomorrow evening it'll be running. And pray to God it runs good, because I'm sick and tired of this truck. It's been a disaster. What's going on, you guys? So it's Friday. I worked late last night, got this motor built. It is all done. She's ready to go back in the truck. We're leaving the oil pan off of it to help get it into the into the truck. But it's completely done now. We're gonna go ahead and stick it in. I'm gonna put the torque converter back on the transmission, and it should be running today, hopefully. Then we have to build the Range Rover engine. That would be the next one to get out of here. But today we are just gonna focus on getting this bad boy in and pray it all runs right. We did have to replace all the MDF solenoids. Besides this one, I just cleaned this one out. But these were all caked with metal. And when they cake with metal inside here, it's like a step down. You can't get the bottom piece of the solenoid out without breaking the top piece off, pretty much, because it's just plugged with metal when the camshaft fails. So yeah, all I gotta do is just put the engine mounts on really quick and get it off the stand, and then do a time lapse of putting this thing back together, and then I'll show you guys when it runs. So I got the engine in. Really wasn't as bad as I thought. You know, I'm the only person here today, and it literally just, you know, popped right in. I do have a jack underneath the transmission, and jack the transmission as high as it will go. So when the engine goes in, it's over the engine mounts. I got 2 bolts in the engine right now, and I just rerouted this harness here. Just rerouted all that, and the one over here that comes down around the engine. And to make it a little bit easier, like I said, I did leave the oil pan off, but I am going to put it on right now before I set it in the engine mount, just to make this pickup tube right here a little bit easier. Give me some more room with the oil pan. Then I'll set the engine down, then put all the transmission bolts in, and then hook the flywheel up to the engine, or the flywheel up to the torque converter, bolt that in. And then after that, it's pretty much just slinging it back together. Everything else should be pretty much pretty easy. I'm gonna put the whole engine together and the harness together before I mess around with the front clip and the radiators, just so I can easily work on it in here. So yeah, pretty easy job, honestly. I mean, there's one thing about a HEMI. I mean, they're pretty easy to work on. They're just junk engines, honestly. Alright, you guys, so the 2500 is out. As you can see, the shop is a fucking disaster. So here is the truck running. The check engine light's on because of a map sensor. We're here today cleaning up the shop and pretty much getting this truck completely done. We gotta fill it with the map sensor is messed up on the truck, and it's cold, but it is running great. We went out and drove it all last night, and it runs like a champ right now. It's just the map sensor is being cold right now. It's acting all kind of crazy, but it is completely done now. We just got to fill the AC today. I got to fix one leak on the truck, and then after that is going back to the customer. Hopefully, I mean, this engine should last him quite some time now. It is literally completely silent, but the front crankshaft seal's leaking. I don't know if I, pinched it or whatever. So we're gonna have to fix that today. But we're making 60 psi oil pressure now, and it holds, when it's completely hot, it'll hold to 28. But this is it running cold right now. Don't look at the hoses right here. These are just flopping all around. But we gotta put the new brace on here, or the brace on here, fill the AC up, then fix the bottom crankshaft front seal, and then after that she's done. So yeah, so the truck is almost done. It's just running like crap because of that map sensor, and it's pretty cold here this morning. But last night we literally had no issues with it besides the front crank leaking. But we're here today, it's Saturday. We're gonna clean up the shop, sweep it all up, and get all the oil up, and throw away all the trash from all the new parts of the engine, and call this one done. The next one's gonna be the Range Rover. Here she is, all done. Running like a top now. We fixed the map sensor in the back. Now it actually idles right. Filled it up with AC. AC's working, heat's working. No leaks, no nothing. We fixed the front crank seal. So she is all done, you guys. Whoops. Then we're left with 22 psi of oil pressure, and it shoots up to right around 50 when you hit the gas pedal, whereas before we were only getting roughly, like, an idle, we were only getting like 5 psi of oil pressure and the motor was knocking. Whereas now she is completely silent besides the lifters, which it has new lifters in it, so they just take a while to break in so it shuts up. But she's good to go, you guys. All done. Just trying to do the final checks on it, make sure all the fluids are good. And she's out of here today. It's been a long journey with this truck, to say the least. Alright guys, so I left off the video Saturday of the 2500 running great, which it was. Drove it all around Saturday evening, and it drove fine. And then I tried to take it home Saturday night just to make sure I was going to use it all weekend, make sure it was good, and make sure that the customer wouldn't floor it everywhere he went before the engine was actually broken in. And well, I tried to drive it home, and it started running super bad. It started like it just literally like one cylinder wasn't even working, like wasn't even there. It was just causing a crazy vibration. And the code was for number 4 misfire. So this was like super late Saturday. So I pulled spark plugs, pulled the cool pack off, compression checked it, cylinder's good. And so it smelled like you smell the cool pack, since I literally just got in driving it. It smelled like the cool pack was completely cooked. So I put a new cool pack in it, and started running great again. Drove it, tried to drive it back home, did the same thing, pulled the codes on it, and had code for MBS solenoids, and we just replaced those with brand new ones. And I'm wondering if we have a one bad MBS solenoid, and it's going in a 4-cylinder mode, and now it can't come out of the 4-cylinder mode, or maybe it's in 7 cylinders, and that's where the huge vibration is coming from. So in other words, we didn't drive it at all. It sat here at the dealership. Just now making me some coffee here. Trying to get the, first thing, Monday's always hell here. So I'm gonna pull this bike back out and pull the truck in and hook the scanner up to it and see what's actually going on with it. Hopefully it is an MBS solenoid and not like, something internal to the engine, which I really doubt, because like I said, it was running all day Saturday and ran great all day Saturday with no hiccups besides the map sensor code, which I ended up figuring that out late last night as well. The wire pulled out of the connector, so I'm gonna resolder the little socket that goes inside the connector back onto the wire, because it literally just pulled out of the connector. So I'm gonna pull that apart, resolder that, get that thing straight, and then do the MDS solenoid once we get that figured out. Hopefully it's easy fix, because the customer's scheduled to come today to pick it up. We keep pushing him back. I don't know. So hopefully this is it for this motor, because we got way too much other work already scheduled for this week to really keep working on this thing. So yeah, I'm gonna take you guys, I guess, and we're gonna troubleshoot this MDS solenoid and see what happens. Here we are, we're back in the shop with this thing now. And if you own older vehicles, or you got like a project car or whatever the case may be, and you don't have money for a $10,000 scanner, this little tool right here, it's called Auto Fix. This thing, I don't know how much it costs. I don't know anything, price wise on this thing, but I think it's pretty cheap. Well, that's how I knew that I had an engine issue when I was trying to drive it. Instead of taking the big scanner home, I hooked up that little thumb drive thing into the OBD, just had it on my phone, connected, and literally knew I had an issue as soon as it started happening. But popped the check engine light, the thing was already hooked up to my phone and told me exactly what was going on with the truck. But now they were back at the shop, and it's Monday. I got the big scanner hooked up and looking to see what's actually happened to this thing, because it's literally just running like absolute crap. And I'm hoping one of the MDS lifters did not get stuck, because they are all brand new. If they are stuck, that means the head's got to come back off this truck, and that is not ideal. I mean, God, this thing has been apart so many times, just because there's so many unknowns in the used car dealership world. You don't know what other mechanics had issues with, how the truck was treated beforehand. So here we go. So I disconnected the MDS harness, and I know it controls the camshaft phaser because it has a solenoid on it, but I tried to unplug it to try to get it home, and hopefully it would just turn off the MDS, but it still does not work. But as you can see, this is the problem right here: cylinder 4 reactivation control performance. This is the one that was bad when we had it, and yes, if you hear that, the doors keep unlocking and locking. That's because the key button is stuck. We're not worried about that one right now. So I plugged in the harness, and I'm gonna clear all these codes, restart the truck up, and see what happens. Alright guys, so you can't really tell in the videos, but the whole truck is just absolutely shaking like crazy. Like just a crazy vibration. That's because number 4 cylinder, the MDS is turned off the cylinder and it can't return it on for some reason. And I think it's because of the MDS solenoids we use. It seems to be running decently smooth right now, but it's really not. The minute you go out and hit the gas pedal, it just like, the whole truck just like, I mean, it is so bad. And it's because, you know, MDF is supposed to work with 4 cylinders, not just 1. And when it's only working with 1, it causes a huge imbalance on the engine and just shakes like crazy. We did order an OEM solenoid, so hopefully that will fix this issue. But what I'm going to do first thing this morning is really, and this is really just easing my mind. This isn't really a part of, you know, troubleshooting this. Is I'm gonna run through and do all 8 cylinders and do compression check on all 8 of them, just to make sure we know that our work is good, and eases my mind a little bit, because, you know, being that deep, it really, I guess, freaks me out a little bit. I mean, it's a lot of money that's went into this thing, and I just want to make sure it's okay. So that's the first thing I'm going to do this morning. Then after that, I'm going to go ahead and pull the intake and pull the MDF solenoid out. Alright guys, so I pulled the intake off of the Dodge, and this is what I found. This was separated from this, and this is a brand new part from Amazon. It was 4 of them for 80 bucks. Obviously you get what you pay for. This is plastic, and this is literally snapped off of here. And here is the Dorman one for, I think it's $58 a piece, but look at it, it's completely metal, so there's no way this is gonna break under pressure. Whereas this one, it was literally broken, and then I followed the old trick. I found it off YouTube. You just put a screw in there in the center hole and use a hammer, like a legit carpenter hammer, and you just pull them out. This one popped right out because it was, you know, brand new. Now if you have an old one, I guess this trick will still work on it. So I think I'm gonna go up the road and buy 3 more of these and just get rid of all this plastic junk from Amazon, so we don't have this issue again, especially on a brand new engine. Alright you guys, so she's actually running smooth now, and here's all the MDS solenoids. So these are all brand new. Every single one of them broke. They were all loose from the beginning. So we changed them all over to the Dorman ones that are metal instead of this plastic. So about to go drive it, and hopefully it does good, and we can call this one finished. Alright guys, so the ram is completely done now. I went ahead and been driving it for 2 days now. Drove it home for 2 days. Things running great. Just need to fix the exhaust. It has like a little exhaust leak on it, and then it should be completely done. Look right there. It's got the 30-day tags on it now. So yeah, it should be going to the customer tonight. They got literally a brand new engine out of the deal. So yeah, I told him, you know, give me a call if anything happens. It's still, you know, a fresh engine. Don't be dogging it. But it should be good. I mean, I've ripped it a couple times and it runs great. Like I said, it popped a check engine light last night for O2 sensor, but I'm pretty sure it's because the driver's side exhaust is a little bit loose. So I'm gonna tighten those up once the engine cools down, and that'll be done.